The Analects is a collection of quotes and stories, written and compiled by the disciples of Confucius, the beloved Chinese philosopher. The teachings of Confucius may be seen as refreshingly practical. While he was a man of his time and fundamentally spiritual in his thinking, the teachings of Confucius are more or less value-based. He speaks primarily about being rigorous in maintaining a virtuous lifestyle and acting in accordance with your beliefs. Even though the words and ideas in the Analects date back centuries ago, you'll see why they continue to be considered highly relevant today. Confucius lived between the years of 551 and 479 BC. During this time, China went through some changes, some of which Confucius wasn't too happy about. In particular, Confucius felt that people were losing sight of the importance of traditional rituals. There is a lot of talk about rituals in the Analects. A ritual could be referring to how one should dress or properly bow before a higher-ranking official, or to the details of a sacrificial ceremony. Rituals like these had been passed down for generations. They had formed the backbone of the religious worldview of many Chinese people. Through adherence to ritual, men could be seen as gentlemen of virtue. And in turn, through virtue, one could attain heaven's favor. So, it stands to reason that few things were as important to Confucius as virtue. True virtue not only leads to good fortune from heaven smiling down upon you, it also brings the kind of balance and harmony that allows a person to be an effective leader. However, by the time Confucius was alive, during the Eastern Zhou dynasty, rigorous attention to ritual began to slacken. And rather than promoting harmony through virtuous leadership, the newly appointed heads of vassal states were enacting strict rules and laws in order to get people to fall in line. So, in addition to explaining how one can live the virtuous life of a true gentleman, many passages in the Analects are also about these new laws, the lack of adherence to ritual, and what Confucius did and didn't like about specific officials of the day. The way is the morally upright path, the path of a gentleman, the path that is demonstrated through adherence to ritual, and the path that is approved and rewarded by heaven. In terms of leadership, Wu Wei was also the ideal. Many passages in the Analects reflect the belief that a leader who embodies the way, in their actions and their words, could effortlessly influence the people to also lead virtuous lives. With the way, no effort, and no restrictive rules or laws are necessary. Take this third passage in Book 2. If you try to guide the common people with coercive regulations and keep them in line with punishments, the common people will become evasive and will have no sense of shame. On the other hand, if you guide them with virtue, and proscribe ritual, the people will have a sense of shame and reform themselves, without the need for oppressive laws. This is the power of the way, and the power of Wu Wei. This comes up again at the end of Book 2. Ji Kongzi, one of the most powerful people in the Chinese state of Lu, asks Confucius directly, how can he lead people toward being industrious, obedient, and respectful? Confucius explains that the leader has to have the virtuous qualities of dignity, kindness, and a love of learning. With these in place, the results he's looking for will naturally, effortlessly, follow. In his words, oversee them with dignity, and the people will be respectful, oversee them with filiality and kindness, and the people will be dutiful. Oversee them by raising up the accomplished and instructing those who are unable, and the people will be industrious. When it comes to learning, one needs to go all the way and put the lessons into action, and fully incorporate them into their daily lives, before they can say they've truly learned something. There is very little value put on abstract and theoretical knowledge. You have to walk the walk. You have to put your beliefs into tangible actions and behaviors. As Confucius puts it in Book 9, a person who finds respectful words pleasing but does not live up to them, or agrees with others' reproaches and yet does not change, there is nothing I can do with one such as this. Saying something is one thing, backing up those words with action, that is virtue. Throughout the Analects, Confucius also has some advice on relationships or how best to treat and respect those around you. As we've already mentioned, part of the wu-wei nature of acting with virtue is that it will naturally, effortlessly attract other virtuous people toward you. Of course, no one is perfect, and so it is part of the way to treat friends and associates with care and respect. In Book 12, a passage reads, "A gentleman helps others to realize their good qualities, rather than their bad. A petty person does the opposite. Likewise, if you need to admonish a friend's behavior, be gentle about it. And if your words are ignored, don't press the matter. If you do, it's likely that your good intentions will come across as an insult." In the same vein, Confucius advises that we can also learn from the faults of others. Rather than criticizing people, we should look inward and see if we too can't learn from someone else's mistakes. One of the more important characteristics promoted by Confucius is known as filial piety, which is essentially having respect for one's family, especially your elders and parents. Many rituals were based around the outward showing of respect for elders, and Confucius had no tolerance for those who were half-hearted or insincere in paying their elders the respect they were due. There's a chance that if you've only heard a little bit about Confucius, you might be under the impression that his teachings are complex or cryptic. But even during his lifetime, Confucius tried to explain that his philosophy was really not complicated at all. In fact, he even mentioned that it could all be tied together with a single thread. The single thread is mentioned in both Book 4 and Book 15. In the 15th passage of Book 4, Confucius says, "All that I teach can be strung together on a single thread." Now, he goes on to say that this thread is to fulfill your obligations while also having an understanding and sympathy for others. Maybe that sounds simple enough, but the thing is, like any ancient text that has been translated over and over again, there are different takes. The Analects has inspired countless translations and countless debates. The original text is that the single thread is a combination of the words zhong and shu. One of the simplest ways to put this would be dutifulness tempered by understanding. Either way, this idea of being devoted to your responsibilities, and being able to put yourself in the shoes of others, aligns well with much of how Confucius describes virtuous behavior. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more book discussions.